Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are now commencing the Sadhana Pada, having considered the Samadhi Pada of Uttamadhikari, where the yoga of Uttamadhikari has been completely explained. And now it becomes important that the yoga of Madhyamadhikari, middle qualified yogis, their yoga to be explained now. And of course, the second chapter also includes yoga for Adhamadhikari, that means lowly qualified yoga practitioners. At the outset, let me tell you that we in our era should not consider that we are lowly qualified practitioners of yoga according to Patanjali's scheme of things. It would be proper to say that we are Adhamadhamadhikari or Anadhikari. It would be more precise to say we are Anadhikari, and yet we are dabbling with yoga. But we can do that. There's nothing wrong in it. But our yoga is altogether different, which Patanjali doesn't circumscribe in his treatise. It comes by implications. It is between the lines it has come. So, the second chapter commences with yoga of Madhyamadhikari. If the first chapter was called Samadhi Pada, that means Samadhi itself was their sadhana. For Uttamadhikari, Samadhi itself was their means of yoga. Samprajña Samadhi was the means for their yoga, precisely. And Samprajña Asamprajña Samadhi together was the means for them. Whereas our yoga doesn't commence with Samadhi. Uttamadhikari's yoga commences with Samadhi. Those who are like Gnaneshwar Maharaj, Yajnavalkya, Vyasa Vasisthadi Prabhuti. So their yoga doesn't commence the way our yoga commences. And their yoga commences with Samadhi sadhana. And that is Samprajñat Asamprajñat Samadhi. So that was mentioned in the first chapter. The second chapter is called Sadhana Pada. And at the outset, let me tell you, it is not Sadhana Pada, but it is Sadhana Pada. It's a precept on means of yoga. Because the word sadhan is also spelled in a way the word sadhana is spelled. And that's why the confusion is rampant in people of our times who are not familiar with Sanskrit. Sadhana means means of yoga. Sadhana means practices of yoga. Our yoga starts with certain practices. In our times particularly, our yoga starts with certain specific practices. And when we do that, we deem that we are doing yoga. But more often there are no means in what you do. The means of yoga is not there. What are the means of what we do? Our means of what you do or what we do today is health, good physical, mental health. That's what is the means of what we are doing, because we are looking for that in our life. We want healthy life. We want healthy body, mind. And that's why we do our yoga. So these are the ends that we are looking for, and therefore we are looking for a means for these ends. In classical yoga, in Patanjali scheme of things, this is not the means and end. So, yoga is not done for seeking health. And perhaps today, in our times again, yoga is wonderful means for health. Yoga is also wonderful means for wealth, name, fame, recognition, money, status. Because yoga has become so popular today that you attain name, fame, money, recognition, wealth by yoga. And nowhere in classical approach these are the ends. Yoga is not done for name, fame, money, recognition, and of course the health and well-being, worldly well-being and physical mental health. So that is the yoga of Adhamadikari, perhaps Adhamadikari. We as Adhamadikari can be considering these things as an end in life, that we get good health, physical, mental health, we get good life conditions, and then we get name, fame, money, recognition, status, etc., which is sought after by modern man, and that is the be all and end all in life for man in our times. We feel accomplished if we have attained those things: name, fame, money, recognition, and then physical, mental health, to be carrying out the mundane activity. Anyway, this is sadhana pada. More often it is translated as precept on practices. These are not precepts on practices. And in aphoristic text, practices cannot be mentioned for each individual, because then it would change from person to person, time to time. And even for one person it would change time to time. So what is important is the means must be maintained. Means of yoga should be mentioned, and then we have to see for these means what should be our practices. To put it simply, what would be yoga practice of yoga for children, teenagers, young ones, adult ones, old ones, and very old ones? The practices would change. And then practices also would change for any category depending upon the given condition. Some days well, some days not well, some days energetic, some days with depleted energies, some days motivated, some days not motivated. So it has to be devised and customized as what should be done on a particular day. So the practices are very flexible, and therefore there cannot be a textual mention of practices in the sense we understand what practice is. So we should know the means of yoga, and what one would do would be different than what someone else would do for the same means. The endeavor to adhere to means would be changing from person to person, time to time, place to place. So it is important to crystallize the means for yoga, and this precept is coming to mention the means of yoga and not practices of yoga. I repeat, practices would be customized, devised. The teachers have to tell you what you should do. You should know as to what you should do. But why you should do must be a standard thing. What you should do will not be standard, it will be open architecture. But why you should do yoga must be standardized. And unfortunately, that is not there. And there is a wrong standard that you do yoga for physical, mental well being, to be a bifooted creature on the planet. Anyway, so this is sadhana pada. And having mentioned the yoga for the highly qualified, supremely qualified yogis, it is very proper that he now considers, Patanjali now considers yoga for one on a little, immediately rung below that rung. That's called madhyamadhikari, mediocre. The yoga of supreme is mentioned. Now yoga of mediocre has to be mentioned. So yoga of madhyamadhikari is being commenced. And that is called Kriya Yoga. At the outset, let me tell you, it should not be mistaken. The Kriya Yoga mentioned here should not be mistaken to the brand of Kriya Yoga that is available in our times. Because there are so many schools of yoga in the world today, and one of them is called Kriya Yoga. So, where a reference is not to that brand of yoga that is prevailing today as Kriya Yoga, but this is a classical term to mention Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is for mediocre yogi. Now, what is that the mediocre yogi is seeking is that he has samadhi potentials, the samadhi has to actualize. So that is why he does yoga. He has samadhi potentials, he has qualifications for samadhi potentials, and this mediocre yogi wants ways and means to actualize the potentials. That is one. Second reason is that this mediocre yogi wants ways and means to eradicate kleshas, metapsychological afflictions, and not psychological afflictions. We mortals want to overcome psychological afflictions. We have no idea of what metapsychical afflictions are, the kleshas are. So, mediocre yogi is looking to discourage, dwindle, dispose of, destroy, weaken and destroy, weaken, attenuate and destroy kleshas. Now, we don't do yoga for that purpose today. We are doing yoga for our physical health, mental health, and good status in life. Mediocre yogi is not doing for that. So that's what Kriya Yoga is. That yoga where the major outlook is to evolve the samadhi potentials to actualize. So understand, samadhi potentials are already there, and they need to be just getting actualized. Like there is a plant, flower plant, and then there is a bud, the flower in a budded state. So what the budded flower is looking for is blossoming and blooming as early as possible, as soon as possible. So that is looking for blossoming and blooming. So here the samadhi is, when I say it is potentially there, or samadhi potentials are there, that means samadhi is in a budded state and it just wants to bloom and blossom. Just as flower blooms and blossoms in particular stage of its existence. So this budded samadhi has to blossom. Nowhere, we are nowhere there. We have to go a long way to come to that stage where samadhi, which is in budded state, is going to bloom and blossom. We don't have still the plant in place. If there is no plant in place, there is no case of budded condition of the flower waiting for blossoming of it. So that much is the samadhi potential in a madhyamadhikari. So he's just waiting for the samadhi to bloom and blossom, just as we materialistic people at the end of the day are waiting for us to get a good sleep. So the evening we are waiting, late evening we are waiting to get a good sleep at night. And that's what everyone will be waiting as a mortal on the planet. And this yogi is similarly now intently looking for samadhi to bloom and blossom. Just as we look for nidra to blossom every day at the end of the day, this yogi is looking for samadhi to blossom. So our purushartha is to get a good sleep at night. And this middle hierarchy yogi, his purushartha is in blossoming of samadhi, which is in a budded state. So that is one motive for this middle hierarchy yogi, madhyamadhikari. And number 2 is klesha tanukaranam. We in fact do not know what kleshas are, and we are enjoying kleshas. We don't want the kleshas to really end. We want our agonies to end. We are not trying to overcome the kleshas. We just want to overcome our agonies. So this Kriya Yoga is klesha tanukaranartha and not agony tanukaranartha. Our yoga is for agony agony attenuation. Agani tanukaranam is what we look for in our life. Our sorrows must dwindle. Our sorrows must reduce. Our sorrows must evaporate, vaporize. And that's why we do our yoga. So by doing our yoga, temporarily our sorrows are gone. No sooner yoga is over, the sorrows again raise their heads. They are back. And every day we do that. Like every day we go to sleep and get up in the morning and we are back to square one. So this is a yogi who has realized that the kleshas are source of all problems. And the kleshas are keeping us where we are. And we will not be embarking on that plane unless the kleshas are attenuated, weakened, dispelled, and driven out or destroyed. So he is looking for those two aspects. So he is called Madhyamadhikari. So for us, he is a noble yogi. He is on Himalayan heights for us. So the middle hierarchy yogi is on Himalayan heights. And perhaps those who have heard about yogis dwell on Himalayas, they are Madhyamadhikari yogis. They have nothing else to seek in life genuinely. If they are genuine Himalaya dwellers. There are many Himalayan dwellers who are there to fool the mankind. But a genuine Himalayan dweller is looking for only samadhi. That is Madhyamadhikari. And for us, he is on Himalayan plane of consciousness. So that is what is Madhyamadhikari is. And the Kriya Yoga is the means for Samadhi Bhavana and Kleshatodukaranam, which is explicit in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So it commences by explaining Kriya Yoga and Kriya Yogi. So Kriya Yoga is described as to what are the means adhered to by the middle hierarchy yogi as against the means that we adhere to. So we understand what means we are adhering. Few asanas, few pranayamas, few kriyas, etc., which have come in yogic texts. So we dabble with them. We interfere and dabble with those, and we try to do something out of it. And then we think we are doing yoga. And then why we are doing yoga is very clear, 100% clear, that we are doing yoga for physical, mental well-being, good, well-assured health, no health hassles, no health limitations. That's number one. And then, of course, today, in our times, if you are a yoga practitioner, you can make fortunes, both in terms of name, fame, recognition on one hand, and money and wealth on the other hand. Very, very lucrative profession today. And we today, or generation of our times, are trying to make yoga as a profession because it is very lucrative and very rich in prospects. But that's a temporary condition that we have today. This was not there for previous generations, and today it has come up for present generation, that yoga is a wonderful profession, business, industry, enterprise. Anyway, so that is what yoga, that is why we do our yoga. But why Kriya Yogi does yoga is totally a different consideration that we have just now considered here. Samadhi Bhavanartha Kleshatanukaranarthascha, which is very, very explicit in Patanjali's text. So what is Kriya Yoga and what is Kriya Yogi? And I just now gave a little idea that this Kriya Yogi is the one who, for us, is someone who is in Himalayas and stays there. He is not looking for any job on a mountain peak in Himalayas. He is not looking for any business on mountain peak of Himalayas at 18,000, 20,000, 25,000 feet. So what is that yogi looking for? Is samadhi blossoming and kleshas attenuated. So why he adheres to yoga is definitely different than why we adhere to yoga. We want to overcome sorrows, basically. We want to overcome ill health, basically. We want to overcome weakness in our embodiment, physical, mental. That is why we do yoga. And that's why we are told that yoga is very good. But why yoga is very good for someone on the plane of Kriya Yoga is that yoga blossoms samadhi, blooms samadhi. You have the potentials, it has to bloom and blossom. You have to do something for it to come from budded state to blossomed state. And then Kleshatanukaranam. So why Kriya Yogi does yoga is this, and why Adhamadhikari does yoga or Anadhikari does yoga is totally different. So that will tell us little clearly about what is Kriya Yogi, that his objective to yoga or intent to do yoga is totally different than our intent to do yoga. So the intent is different, dynamics are different, drive, motive, motion, execution, purpose, everything is different. So we'll have to characterize what is Kriya Yoga and what is Kriya Yogi. So Kriya Yogi, to give you some idea about it, the Kriya Yogi is in pursuit of what is called as Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So his means for Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga are in his repertoire, in his quiver. Like an archer keeps the arrows in the quiver and goes around with arrows. And when it is opportune time, right time, he pulls one arrow and mounts it on the bow and then shoots. So all the arrows must be there. You can't just carry a bow in your hands and no arrows with you. The bow is of no avail with no arrows with you. You need arrows if you are wielding a bow. So all these arrows required for samadhi. Samadhi sadhana means you must be accomplished in Jnana Yoga, tenets, principles, practices. Karma Yoga, tenets, principles, practices. Dhyana Yoga, tenets, principles, practices. Bhakti Yoga, tenets, principles, practices. And you should pull out the right one at right point in time and mount it on the arrow. So, in other words, Kriya Yogi is well versed in philosophy, religion, conduct, practices of Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, it entails for us to really comprehend the Kriya Yogi as to what is Jnana Yoga, what is Karma Yoga, what is Dhyana Yoga, what is Bhakti Yoga. If you have no idea about it, we really cannot be conceiving the Kriya Yoga and Kriya Yogi. So in the next step, let me explain you Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga means Nitya Nitya Viveka. His life is conducted on the lines of Nitya Nitya Viveka. Our life is conducted on the basis of want and not want, wants and unwants. I want this, I will go for it. I don't want it, I will not go for it. So we have the want and unwant viveka. I want this, I don't want this. This we identify. And then our life is led by this. I want it, therefore I do it. I don't want it, therefore I avoid it. So our life is based on want, unwant viveka. Whereas here in Jnana Yoga, Nitya Nitya Vivekam. So that's the Vivekam. That is the discrimination required in philosophy and philosopher's life and philosophize life. If this discrimination is not there, you cannot be in philosophical life. So you must be pretty sure about what is absolutely eternal and the other one which is ephemeral, permanent, impermanent, in real sense of the term, absolute term, not relative permanent and impermanent. Because sometimes we mortals say, this is my permanent investment for life. I have built a house, so I have a house for all time, permanent. You yourself, you are not permanent, and your house is also not permanent. It will not last for more than 100 years or 150 years or 200 years. In what sense it is permanent? But we think it is permanent once the house is built. So we have relative concept of permanent, impermanent. Philosophy will tell you about absolute permanence and impermanence. And this is what is guiding the yogi. Nitya Nitya Vivekam. Atman Atma Vivekam. We have no idea what is self and what is not self. And we are believing in as our non-self as self, and we are carrying out our life and perhaps successful in our life from social assessment or in social assessment. So Atman Atma Vivekam, Nitya Nitya Vivekam, Sukha Dukkha Vivekam, Papa Punya Vivekam, Shuchi Ashuchi Vivekam. So it's all discrimination. So Jnana Yoga gives you the vision to discriminate absolutely in these pairs. And that is Jnana Yogic pursuit. To really understand what is true, what is untrue, what is real, what is unreal, what is permanent, what is impermanent, what is self, what is non-self, and in absolute terms, not relative terms. So that is what is the endeavor of Jnana Yoga. So in philosophical life or philosophized life, this is very, very important. You can't be a victim or cannot be getting caught in the web of the impermanent things, believing them to be permanent, or getting alluded by impermanent things or deluded by impermanent things. Then you know the whole mathematics of life goes wrong. So that is Jnana Yoga, Nitya, Nitya Vivekam, etc., which I just now mentioned in brief. So the Upanishads will tell you about it, Vedanta Jnana will tell you about it, Sankhya Jnana will tell you about it, Gita Shastram will tell you about it. It will give you some basis for discrimination and Vivekam. That is Jnana Yoga. By the by, let me tell you, there is a precept in Bhagavad Gita called Jnana Yoga. And then if you look at the contents of that chapter, you will know, you will have some idea as to what Jnana Yoga is. And of course, Jnana Yoga is studied in Bhagavad Gita. Then comes Karma Yoga. In Karma Yoga, basically you must have Karma, Karma Viveka, Dharma, Dharma Viveka, Papa, Punya Viveka. About our activities, the philosophy must give us clarity about what is my essential duty and what is not. Most of us are trying to accomplish something and we go all out by hook or crook, and we want to accomplish that thinking that it is our duty, and it is not at all our duty, because we lack wisdom in Dharma, Adharma, Viveka. What is Dharma, Adharma? What is Karma, Karma? What is Kartavya, Kartavya? So the Viveka with respect to the activities in life, about the activities of life, that is Karma Yoga. And then we will have to be doing. We will be doing so many things. It's not that we will only adhere to dharma and do not do any adharma. Unknowingly, adharma will happen. If you look into philosophy of Karma Yoga, you will know that we are caught in the gravity of the mundane world, and many times we have to do something which we don't want to do. We should not be doing. Even if you don't want to do, you are forced to do, because the gravities of life. You should not be doing it, yet you think you should do it. Or you know that you should not do it, but you are forced to do it. So if you understand the dynamics of life, so you have to understand the dynamics of life in Karma Yoga. And then develop the wisdom for Dharma, Adharma, Karma, Karma, Kartavya, Kartavya, Papa, Punya, Shubha, Shubha. And then, as I said, invariably there will be the opposite kinds of karmas will be committed, even if you don't wish and have will, yet the dynamics of life are such that we are forced to do certain things. So in that case, in order that we are not caught by the consequences of it, we must develop the skill to see that we are untouched by the consequences. And that is Karma Yoga. Padma Patra Ivam Bhasa, Bhagavad Gita. You should be like a lotus leaf. The lotus plant is in mire. It doesn't say, I don't want to stay in mire. Give me a clean place in a palace. It is in mire, but it is untouched by mire, it is untouched by water. So that's how we are in mundane mire, and you can't expect that I should be uprooted from here and should be put into heavens where everything is pure, clean. No, that's not possible. So we have to be in a mundane mire. Despite being in mundane mire, we should be like a pankaja. The lotus which comes from mire is untouched by mire. The lotus comes from water but is untouched by water. So we must develop the skill to be not touched by consequences of our karmas. So that skill is Karma Yoga. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. And then another one is that even if that viveka is not there and you are not sure about it, then Bhagavad Arpanam, offering all karmas to Bhagavan. So Sarva Karma Arpanam, or as Vyasa has told us in Yoga Sutra, Parama Guru Arpanam. So develop the nature in us to offer the karmas, because we are not able to really identify immaculately that whether it is dharma or adharma. We are not sure, or adharma is committed knowingly. Unknowingly it is committed, knowing that it is adharma. Then there is still a way out, is the karma nyasa, karma phala nyasa. So that is Karma Yoga. So yogi is more scrupulous about the dynamics of life. He has karma consciousness, and therefore he understands Karma Yoga principles, and the ways and means which are suggested in Karma Yoga, such as Nishkama Karma, Karma Phalarpana, Karma Phala Nyasa, Karma Phala Sannyasa, Sarva Karma Arpanam. So these are various means and practices which come in Karma Yoga. Again, Bhagavad Gita is the best treatise to understand what Karma Yoga is. And there is Jnana Nishtha Karma Yoga and Bhakti Nishtha Karma Yoga, because you are a devotee, you have ways and means to tackle Karma Yogic principles, or because you have Jnana, you are able to tackle the Karma Yogic channel. Like Janaka. Janaka, he had Jnana Nishtha Karma, he was a Karma Yogi. The Jnana was there prominently in his Karma Yoga. While there can be Karma Yoga because of Bhakti, by Sarvarpanam, Karmarpanam, Karma Phalarpanam, Karma Phalanyasa, Karma Phala Sannyasa. So the fruits are coming your way, but then you will just surrender the fruits and not partake the fruits. That is because of Bhakti. So there is Karma Yoga. So this yogi, Madhyama Adhikari, is accomplished in Karma Yoga philosophy, Karma Yoga Dharma. And then comes Dhyana Yoga. By Dhyana Yoga, he is able to have control over the mind, that the mind is not oscillating in dualities, doesn't get caught in the magnitude of magnetism of dualities, on-oscillating mind. So there are certain practices that are called Dhyana Yoga practices. And this yoga that we are pursuing in Patanjali Yoga Sutra has this Dhyana Yoga quite profusely studied. Dvandva Anubhighata conditions in asanas, Dvandva Anubhighat condition in pranayama, Dvandva Anubhighat condition in our japa, dhyana. So that is Dhyana Yogic aspect, that not to get swayed into pain-pleasure dualities. Various dualities, honor, dishonor, pain, pleasure. On our mental plane, we have so many dualities. sorrows and delights. So, not to get entangled in those polarities is Dhyana Yoga philosophy, Dhyana Yoga practices. So that's called Dhyana Yoga. He is well versed in that also. Then Bhakti Yoga, he knows what divinity is and he becomes devotee of divinity. So he is already a devotee. Karma Yogi, the Kriya Yogi is a devotee. Karma Yogi, Kriya Yogi is also accomplished in Dhyana Yoga. He knows all this Dhyana Sadhana. He is also accomplished in Karma Yoga. He is accomplished in Gnana Yoga. That is what the Kriya Yogi is. And that is what the Kriya Yoga is. Karma, Dhyana, Gnana, Bhakti. These are yogs. He is well equipped with all those, sufficiently resourceful with respect to Gnana, Karma, Dhyana, Bhakti Yoga. And therefore he is a Gnana, Dhyana, Karma, Bhakti Yogi. That is what the Karma Yogi is. So, yoga is for this yogi, Madhyamadhikari yogi, is being commenced. And it is for the purpose of Samadhi Bhava, Samadhi Bhavanartha, and Klesha Tanukaranartha. So, we understand this is definitely a very superior level of yogi compared to what we are. So that's the Madhyamadhikari, and yoga for Madhyamadhikari is being commenced. So this is the enunciation to the Sadhana Pada of Patanjali. Let us proceed to understand the details of the Sadhana Pada which comes in this chapter, but that is from the time we start our next session. Namaskar all of you.